Hi, welcome to the Pink Moon Tarot. I'm Nikki, the Pink Moon Tarotist, and I'm here to give you another edition of Spill the Tea with Nikki. And in this edition, we are talking all things tarot. And this is about how to choose your first tarot deck, and also whether you should be buying your own first tarot deck or not. Because there's a lot of theories around that one, shall we say. But before I get into it, if I could ask you to please remember to like, share and subscribe to the channel. The subscription button is down there or down there, one or the other. Then that would be great. It really does help me to grow as a creator and to get my messages seen by those that may need to see them. So I do appreciate all your support. Now, into the first part, which is the misconception that you should be gifted your first ever tarot deck. And that if you are not gifted your first ever tarot deck, some believe that this means that the tarot deck will be cursed, you will be cursed, there will be some misfortune to befall you if you are unfortunate enough to buy your own tarot deck. And sorry, I'm laughing because it is, to me, it is rather amusing because it is just simply not true. There is possibly some reasoning, somewhere that this has come from, and I would say it is probably because of the fact that tarot decks hundreds of years ago, when they were first being used, were hand-drawn, handmade. They were hard to come by, and tarot decks were therefore passed down from generation to generation. At least that's my theory on why this whole myth came up around you have to be gifted your first tarot deck. But here's the thing. If you are gifted your first tarot deck, you may not actually bond with it. It may not actually be something that you relate to, that you can really truly get to grips with, because it's not your choice. And tarot decks are very, very personal things. You should always choose a tarot deck that speaks to you, speaks to your heart, and something that you feel you can work with. Now, I have lots and lots of tarot decks. I have them all, I'll show you here. I have a few on the table here. Just to show you the ones that I have, not all of them because that would be just too many, but I have a few here as examples to show you during this video. Excuse me. But to say that you have to be gifted your first tarot deck is a real misconception and a real misnomer, and it's just simply not true. I did actually inherit my first ever tarot deck, but that wouldn't have stopped me from buying my own. I can assure you of that. I was just lucky in that my first introduction to tarot was when I was around about 14, 15 years old, and it was with my great-grandmother's tarot deck. When she passed on, she left it to me, and so I inherited it, and that was the journey into tarot that I took. But here's the thing. You don't have to have that happen. You don't have to inherit a deck. You don't have to be gifted a deck. And some people will even go so far as to say you should never buy your own tarot deck because all this bad fortune will fall on you if you buy your own tarot decks. And it's, quite frankly, it's nonsense. And yes, I am going to say that. There is no reason, nowhere in history of tarot does it say that you must inherit or be gifted your tarot decks. It just doesn't say that anywhere, and not in anything I have ever read. There are superstitions around all sorts of things, and tarot is probably one of the biggest places you will find lots of superstitions, but it's just simply not true. So do not worry about that. If you want to buy yourself a tarot deck, then go out and buy one. You know, you don't have to wait for someone to give it to you as a gift. Okay, so with that being said, I will show you my first ever tarot deck. It was this one. It was gifted to me by my great-grandmother. Well, it was left to me by my great-grandmother. That's the other thing. My great-grandmother lived in the 19th century. She was born in 18 something or other. And this was her tarot deck. And she bought this herself. She was not gifted this. She was not handed it down from the generation before. And she was my first introduction into tarot. And if she didn't tell me that I needed to have it gifted to me, then, you know, obviously this is a more recent misconception that has come through. Certainly didn't come through from the 19th century. So this is the deck. It is a French deck. This is the back of the cards. This is what they look like. So these are the minor arcanas. Ooh, they're all over the place. That's a major arcana. That's strength. There's another minor arcana. And you will notice with the minor arcanas, such as this one, that they are just the symbols. So just like in a regular deck of cards where you would have spades, clubs, aces, and hearts, you have cups, wands, or batons as they're called in this, swords, and what have I forgotten? Pentacles, which is this one, the pentacle. So, you know, these are just the simple symbols. Now, this is a deck that it says on the box circa 14th century, sorry. You can see there, it says circa 14th century. And that's because it is based on those cards from the sort of the more medieval period. You know, they're a much more medieval type looking card. The reason I'm telling you that is because that didn't change for very, very many years. You had these kinds of cards where you had the symbols, or you might have had patterns, or geometric patterns is the word I'm looking for there. You might have had geometric patterns, some kind of symbolism, there's the Hanged Man, on the cards, but you didn't have pictures like you do on a lot of the minor arcanas these days. And the reason we have those minor arcanas with pictures on these days is thanks to the Ryder Waite deck, and to the lady that did the artwork for that Ryder Waite deck, who doesn't get much credit, which was the lovely Pamela Coleman Smith. Now, Pamela Coleman Smith, or Pixie as she was known to her friends, was the artist for the Ryder Waite deck. And the Ryder Waite deck is the one that you will see in the most places. It's the one that an awful lot of new modern decks are based on, such as the Lightseers Tarot. You know, and what she did was revolutionary. She took the minor arcanas and she gave them almost as much effectiveness, almost as good a standing as the major arcanas, by giving them symbols, by giving them pictures that depicted scenes like this, the Three of Cups, which were based on real life events, real people, real situations. There's a major arcana. These are all over the place. And of course, every single one I pull out is a major arcana. But like this one, the pentacles there, you still have the symbol of the pentacles, but you have this scene in the background. And the reason she did that was because she wanted, and Arthur Waite wanted, to give the minor arcanas a little bit more meaning, a little bit more information, and a little bit more relatability to people. So they based them on real life situations that people would be in, would find themselves in, that they would find helpful, represented pictorially in the tarot deck. And Pamela Coleman Smith, or Pixie, as I said, She really did revolutionize the way that tarot were seen. And she was not given enough credit, because you will look and see, this is the Universal Waite pack, and it just has Arthur Waite's name on. The original is called the original Ryder Waite, and Ryder is the producer of the cards, and Waite obviously is Arthur Waite, who wrote the information on the cards, created the meanings. But you will not find Pamela Coleman Smith's name on hardly any. There are some now that are called, there are some available rather that are called Smith Waite, but there's not many, and I've not actually seen any in a long time available for purchase. They're nearly all just called Ryder Waite, and that's how everyone knows it, as the Ryder Waite deck. So that's just a little quick sort of potted history, if you like, of the cards and where they came from. So they started off with this medieval style that was symbols, sometimes geometric patterns and things like that. And then they developed on through Arthur Waite and Pixie with her artwork. And she really did revolutionize the whole tarot deck. And the Arthur Waite deck, or the Ryder Waite deck rather, is the most widely used, widely available deck today. And because of that, it is also the one that most of the how-to books on tarot, the explanation books, like the Tarot Bible, it's all based on the Ryder Waite deck. And because of that, it would be remiss of me to advise you as your first deck to get anything other than the Ryder Waite. However, there are caveats to that, and we will get to that in a moment. But because there is so much written about this deck and so many books are based on this deck, it is far easier. This is the original one. As you can see, it's just a little bit duller than the Universal Waite, which is why I picked up the Universal Waite first, because I like the brightness of it. But the pictures are all the same. But as you can see, these cards, very traditional style, very still got that sort of medieval feel to them, and they're still quite sort of, in some instances, quite dark imagery. So not everybody likes the Ryder Waite. It's not a pretty deck, you know. It is a deck that is functional, and it tells a story, which is what you want. But as I said, it was the first mass-produced deck, and it is the deck that you can find the most information on. You can find the most how to use tarot books on the Ryder Waite deck more than any other. And as most modern decks have been based off of this in some respect, then it's a good place to start. But if you really don't like it, don't worry. You know, it doesn't have to be your first deck. There are alternatives, and I will go through those in just a moment. But yeah, the Ryder Waite, it just seems logical to me that that would be your first deck. It wasn't mine, as you know. My first deck was my great-grandmother's. But the other deck that a lot of people will start with, because it is based on the traditional style with symbolism, is this one, which is Alistair Crowley's Thoth tarot deck. Another one that was mass-produced and was done at the same time as Arthur Waite. Arthur and Alistair both belonged to the Order of the Golden Dawn, as did Pixie, and they developed their cards while they were part of that organization. But they just went in slightly different directions. You know, Arthur Waite, as I said, he took the major arcanas, gave them the pictorial references that people were used to, but then he also took, and he changed them around a little bit as well, but he also took the minor arcana, and with the help of Pamela, he created more meaning behind those and created, she created the pictorial representations of people and situations and places and things to make it more accessible, if you like. Whereas Aleister Crowley's deck is still very much based in the symbolism. Now, what one is that actually? Satiety. Okay, that's a different one altogether. We have like the lovers here. I mean, his one is so much more symbolic, if you like. You can see he's used, for the minor arcanas, he has used more symbolism, more geometric patterns. This is the Prince of Wands. You know, it's quite a different looking deck. But it is, although it is a move away from the traditional sort of 14th century style tarot deck, it's still keeping with the minor arcanas being very much more minor than the major arcanas and not having so much influence. Now, the reason I'm pulling this one out as an alternative to this one is if you prefer the symbolisms of the Thoth tarot deck and you prefer the artwork of the Thoth tarot deck to the Ryder Waite deck, then you have got the tarot handbook, which is based off of this deck to help to guide you. And they basically carry pretty much the same meanings. Most tarot decks have the same meanings in some respect or another. There are a few that are exceptions to that, and I will get into that in a minute as well. But, you know, you can't go wrong with having one of the originals. And when I say originals, I mean the original sort of mass-produced ones. Obviously, there were a lot more further back, and this one predates these ones. So you know, it's just the mass production of them started with Ryder Waite and with Thoth, with Aleister Crowley. So what if you don't like either of them? What do you do then? Well, like I said, there are alternatives, because so many decks these days have been based off of the universal or the original Ryder Waite deck. So it's very easy for you to find an alternative that you prefer the look of that still is easy to follow because it's similar to the original one, which most of the books are based on. One such thing is this one. And I often recommend this to beginners in tarot. It is the Beginner's Guide to Tarot by Juliet, Sharman, Burke. And this one, the artwork is almost identical to the Ryder Waite, but it is a bit softer, a bit nicer, you know. But the reason I suggest this one is because it's kind of like a kit, you know. You've got this big, thick guidebook here. And inside, what I really like about Juliet Sharman Burke's book is that inside she has the picture of the card, and then she's annotated the pictures to show you what to be looking out for in those pictures, the reasons behind them, the reasons why those images were used. And she has very much based this on the Ryder Waite, but it is just a little bit lighter and a little bit more feminine, I suppose, in a way. Inside, she does have spreads as well. And she also has one of these maps that the other tarot decks also came with. And they always include the Celtic cross as one of the spreads, showing here. I can get it up the right way. So there is the Celtic cross spread. And on the back, she has also done another 7-card spread. And the maps are there to help beginners, you know, to know where to position the cards, to help you to lay them out. And then inside the book, you know, you go to the book and you look up what each position in those maps is. I don't know where to find it because I've never actually used it. But inside there somewhere will be the reference of, you know, number 1 in that spread will be the past, present, future, whatever it is, you know. But her cards themselves, this is the back of them, very pretty, very simple, just like the Ryder Waite. But then you can see the similarity in the artwork between this and the Ryder Waite is astounding. Actually, that one's quite different. But the similarities are very, very prominent. So it makes it easy to refer from another guidebook to this deck. You know, because you can easily see at a glance which card she has and what they're referring to. And the name of the card is right at the top there. Is that focused? Can't get that to focus. The name of the card is right at the top, the Page of Pentacles. And this one says, you know, the King of Wands. And it's just a very easy deck to use. But it is lighter and slightly prettier, I think, than the original. Just because the artwork is just that little bit softer. Okay. So if you're not keen on the Ryder Waite, but you kind of like it, but you're kind of not sure, then this is a really good alternative. And as I said, it does come with its own complete book. So you kind of get a all-in-one with this one. All comes in a nice little box, and it's just there complete, and you don't have to buy any other compendiums to go with it. However, if you do want to buy, you know, for example, the Tarot Bible or the handbook by Angelus Arian, I think is the name, then you know, then you can still use that deck to refer back to the book. You're not going to get confused by it. Another really good one that I like, and you'll see me using this on my channel all the time, is the Lightseers Tarot. And again, it has a nod to the Ryder Waite. It's not exactly the same. The artwork is completely different, but the characterization and the meaning of the cards is still very, very obvious on each of the cards, which is what makes the Ryder Waite so amazing, because you had Pixie taking the minor arcana and giving them some representation, like this one, the Six of Cups, which we know is the card of nostalgia. Well, how beautifully represented is this? You know, you've got the older person with the older dog thinking back to the young boy with the young pup. You know, it kind of shows it pictorially what it means. And it's a very, very easy to follow deck, even if you are a beginner. The only thing is that the swords are represented by birds rather than swords. But other than that, the cards are really easy to see. Like, you know, I mean, you've got here the Eight of Cups, and the Eight of Cups is that card of leaving behind what doesn't serve you anymore. Well, the picture says it all, doesn't it? You've got a girl walking away, leaving the burning embers of what she no longer requires behind in the cup and walking off into the sunrise. You know, the pictures speak 1,000 words. So I find this deck really great for beginners as well. And if you prefer a prettier and a less sort of medieval looking deck, I would highly recommend this one. But it is personal choice, and you should always go with what you are attracted to. However, there's always a but or a however with me, isn't there? I would steer clear of tarot decks that are a little bit more like a lot of the independent tarot decks are a little bit more artistically open to interpretation. Some tarot decks have been developed with completely different meanings. Like, for example, this one, the Witch's Wisdom. Now, the Witch's Wisdom, the cards themselves actually hold quite different meanings from the original Ryder Waite. It doesn't follow completely, it does to some extent, but it doesn't follow completely what the original Ryder Waite means. You do get this nice book with them, which gives you the explanation of each of the cards, and it gives you the essence of the card, the counsel, so what you should do if you get this card, and then the magic of the card as well. So it's a completely different way of reading tarot using this particular tarot deck. And because of that, I don't use this one very often, because on my channel especially, people are used to a certain type of tarot card, and if you start pulling out cards that they've not seen before, like they have water instead of cups. She has the elements instead of the symbols. But if you start pulling out these cards, which are very nature-based and the meanings are very different, then, you're going to get somebody as a backseat tarotist saying, that's not what that means, because that happens, unfortunately. These weren't developed to follow the traditional tarot deck. They weren't developed with that in mind. So for that reason, I would not recommend, if you're interested in learning tarot and you're interested in getting your first tarot deck, I would not recommend this to be your first tarot deck, because it doesn't follow the traditional tarot mode, if you like. Likewise, something like this one, the Wild Unknown. This is an animal-based deck, and again, it's a lot more difficult to read as a beginner than something that is based on what you're used to seeing in the books. It does have a very extensive guidebook with it, but as you can see, the actual information on each card is quite short. So, and there's no reversed meanings. And it doesn't really sort of go into what it means if it turns up in a reading. It just kind of talks about the card and the meaning of the card itself. But like, for example, this is the Empress, and it's a tree. And the Emperor, I think, was a bird. I think it was a stork or something. And you've got the Mother of Cups as a swan. This is an animal and nature-based tarot deck. That's the Father of Cups, So, again, it's not going to be the easiest one to learn with. And when you're beginning, you want to get to grips with the basics. You want to get to grips with understanding what the tarot means, how they relate to one another, how, if you have swords and pentacles in a reading, then what does that mean? How does it affect it? If it's all cups, what does that mean? You want to know, you want to understand how the tarot works before you start branching off into the more eclectic and the different ones. And even something like this one, the Star Child Tarot, which again, beautiful tarot deck, but it does not follow what the traditional artwork shows us. So, and there are different cards in this as well. So this, for example, 10 of Crystals, it's not Pentacles. The 6 of Cups. You can garner the information from the pictures. There's the Strength card. It does have some different cards in here. The artwork is stunning. It's a lot more based on cosmic things because it is the Star Child Tarot deck. But as you can see, they are very different. That's the Sun. They are very different. So you may be attracted to these and think, yeah, I really want that deck. But I can guarantee you'll find this more difficult to work with when you're learning than if you stick to something that follows the traditional model a little bit more, you know, like these ones. And you cannot go wrong with the Ryder Waite deck. There's even Colette Baron Reid's The Good Tarot. Even this one, although it's a fairly easy deck to use, she uses the elements again rather than cups and swords and what have you. This one, however, you only read in the upright because it is the Good Tarot. Most of these tarot decks don't come with the guidebook like this. I was very lucky in that I found this deck, and my daughter now has the old deck that I had that didn't have the guide in it. But, you know, like I say, she's got earth, water, fire. Oh, that's very lucky. There's the Chariot. You know, it still has a nod to the Ryder Waite, but that's the Hermit. But it is very different. And therefore it could cause some confusion because it's not called Cups, Pentacles, Swords, and Wands. So make it easy on yourself is what I'm saying. Although this is a beautiful deck, and I would recommend that you at some point have a look at it at least, because it is stunning. But then you have other independent decks like the El Goliath one, which again, he has made extra cards in this, and the extra cards, they're not actually in the book. I think you just come up with your own meaning for them. The book itself, however, is amazing. The cards, I'm just going to take out half of them because there's a lot of cards. The cards are beautiful, but they are very, very different. Like, what is that one? The Star Seed. Okay, and we have the Fool. And we have a card of Yes. Well, that's obvious what that one means. And what's this one? The Four of Swords. So, you know, yes, you can find some beautiful independent tarot decks. They are a lot more expensive. I will warn you that now because they are independently produced. That's the other advantage of if you're starting out and you're wanting to just learn about tarot, you don't want to be spending a fortune on tarot decks, and the mass-produced Ryder Waite and the Lightseers and even Juliet Sharman Burke's deck are not that expensive. They're usually between sort of £15 to £25. Sometimes they can be a bit less, especially if you can find them on sale somewhere. So they're not like big budget ones. Whereas cards like this, you know, these were, I had to order these from Canada. So I got them both, the Moon Child and the Star Child Tarot. They came from Canada, which took a while to come. They were quite expensive, you know, they weren't 20 quid, let's put it like that. They were a lot more expensive than that. Same with the El Goliath tarot deck, it was a lot more expensive. It is a limited edition thing, so I've got the second edition. The first edition sold out like that. I don't know if the second edition is still available or not. You'd have to look that up yourself. But you know, these decks, they are a limited run and they go fast because collectors like to collect decks. When you're starting out, this isn't about collecting decks, unless that's all you want to do. If you just want to collect tarot decks because you think they're pretty, then fine, go for it. Go and get what you want. But if you're wanting to actually learn and use the tarot decks for yourself, make it easier on yourself. Start with something that at least relates to the original, okay? In some way that it's going to make it easy for you, or this original, you know. A lot of people struggle with the Thoth tarot deck, and I don't actually use it that often myself. I don't know why. I think it's beautiful, but I just don't reach for it. I always reach for the Lightseers, and I have to stop myself reaching for the Lightseers all the time because I'm very comfortable with it. It's very easy. This one, which was the first Ryder Waite deck that I bought, the universal one, I bought that one, and I've used it so many times now. It's kind of morphed with my energy. So if you've seen my one of my other videos where I talk about it, you will see me saying that it's become somewhat of a sarcastic tarot deck. So I don't use it for clients anymore. I just use it for myself because it's become a little bit morphed with my energy, which is why I bought this one, so that I had the traditional one that I could use for clients. But despite there being a plethora of cards out there, my advice is to stick with something that is along the lines of the traditional ones, because that's what you will find in the guidebooks, in the how-to books, in the tarot Bible, in the tarot guidebook. You know, you will find these traditional cards in there because they are universally known and they are universally available, and they're still available today, and they are not expensive, and they're just a really good place to start. Once you get comfortable with the meanings of the tarot and how to use the tarot, and you've started to bond with your tarot decks, you can of course buy more. You don't need to. You only actually ever need one tarot deck. It's just I happen to really love tarot cards, and I happen to really love the artwork. So I have all sorts. You know, I have my Cosmic Tarot, which again is quite a good one for beginners because, again, it's got similar artwork, similar meanings to, well, not artwork, but similar meanings to the Ryder Waite, and it's quite an easy deck to follow. The name of the cards is on each of the cards, so it's quite an easy one to use. I wouldn't probably recommend it as your first tarot deck, but certainly if you love it, and I think I've done a walkthrough of this one. I think I've done a walkthrough of pretty much all of my decks now. You can see those walkthroughs on my channel. If you're thinking about a deck and you can't get to physically handle it, then do have a look. You know, have a look on YouTube. There are lots and lots of walkthroughs of decks on YouTube, and you can see the artwork. You can see if it's something you like. I kind of wish I'd done that with this one, because the Lightseers is my go-to deck, and this is by Chris Ann, and I love this deck, and I bonded with this deck, and I use this deck all the time. So I thought, when I saw the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann, I thought I would love it just as much, and I don't. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's a very, very pretty deck. That's the back of the cards. Just throwing them all over the place. Comes with a nice little book, just like the Lightseers one does. But I don't know, there's just, it's this one definitely do not get as a beginner deck, because for a start, you know, you've got Queen of Materials instead of Pentacles. They do call the things by different names. It's a very female-based deck. There's the Devil. And it just is a little bit more difficult to follow if you don't already know what the tarot cards mean. Like this one is the Emotions, which would be cups ordinarily. So, you know, you have to kind of stop and think. Like this one, the 10 of Inspiration is the 10 of Wands. Now, you know, And there's the Justice card, which I'm not quite sure what that representation is meant to be. There's the Magician. But, you know, it's a pretty deck. I just don't really reach for it very much. I much prefer the Lightseers. Had I looked at this online first, I maybe wouldn't have bought it. Probably would have done, but I maybe wouldn't have done, because I'm not as enthusiastic about the artwork as I am about the Lightseers artwork. It just doesn't do it for me the same way. So it's always a good idea to check out. If you're thinking about a tarot deck and you can't find good images, just go and check out somebody's walkthrough. There are hundreds of walkthrough videos on YouTube, and they will go through all the different tarot cards with you. But take it easy on yourself. Don't confuse yourself. Don't go out and buy something that is going to be wildly different, like the Witch's Wisdom. And don't go out and get something that is going to be highly symbolic, but not the symbols that you would recognize. Because if you're learning tarot from the books and from other tarot readers and watching them, you're going to kind of want to find those tarot cards that everybody recognizes and that everybody knows. So I hope that was helpful. I hope I made sense there. I intend that I made sense. Like I say, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of tarot decks. And my only warning is that if you do start buying tarot decks, you might find yourself getting a little bit addicted. And if I had the budget, there are plenty of tarot decks out there, especially the independent ones, that I would really dearly love to have. But I'm a single mum, you know, I have priorities with my money, and they're not always about buying new tarot decks. But when you get the opportunity to get something as amazing as this, and you do it, it's great. I love it. And then I also do things like buy on eBay. I bought the Shakespearean Tarot. All the tarot cards are based on Shakespeare plays, and I am a huge Shakespeare fan. I'm a writer. I studied theatre. I'm a huge fan of Shakespeare. This comes with a beautiful guidebook. I don't think it's available anywhere anymore. And you know what? I haven't even opened it. Look, it still has the wrap. Because I can't bring myself to open it because it's so special. And that's silly, I know, but I will do at some point. I'm sure I'll open them. But it's such a gorgeous deck. And I saw this and I saw it on eBay, and it was a complete steal, and I had to have it. But that's a warning to you all. Once you start collecting tarot, who knows where it will end? It's quite addictive, but always choose something that speaks to you. If you can't handle them personally in a shop, if you can't get to a shop and find them in shops, because there's, the shops that sell this kind of stuff are limited. It's not like you go into every town and there's a shop that has tarot cards and crystals. It just doesn't exist. Some towns there are, but most towns there's not. There's none where I live, for example, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, choose something that speaks to you. Choose something that you can understand if you are learning, and just work with them. And if you don't bond with them immediately, don't panic. Sometimes it takes time. In actual fact, my Lightseers Tarot, the one that I use all the time, that I am so addicted to using, when I first got the Lightseers Tarot, I struggled. I couldn't connect. I couldn't bond. It didn't, I just kept picking it up and putting it back down and going, oh, I don't know if I like this deck, because I'd been so used to using this one, which is so vastly different, that it took me a little while to use it. I mean, it didn't take that long. I'm talking sort of days, weeks that it took me to get to grips with this one. But I did bond with it eventually, and boy, have I bonded with it now, and I love it. So, you know, give yourself chance to appreciate the tarot deck, and for the tarot deck to appreciate you. But until next time, happy hunting. Let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite deck. Let me know in the comments below if you have any more questions about tarot decks and how to choose them. Or if you have any questions on tarot at all. And if it's something I can answer in the comments, I will do. If it's not, then I will just put a note and say, I'll do a video on this at some point. Or I'll do a blog on this at some point. Okay? So until next time, please do remember to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and have a wonderful and blessed day. Namaste.